Hi, good morning everyone, and thank you for joining us today on the webinar. I'm Neil and I'm an account manager for AMS, and I'm joined by my colleague Damien, who will be taking us through a demo of the software later. Before we do start, I just wanted to go through a bit of housekeeping, and when you joined the meeting, a dialog box should have opened, and in the bottom right hand corner there should be a text box where you can type in any questions during the webinar. And at the end of it, we'll go through a Q&A session where we'll cover those off. There should also be a full screen mode that will really help during the demo, and you may want to click View Full Screen if you haven't already. So I won't spend too long on this part, but I really think here it's worth mentioning that we are a technology company based in Bournemouth, and we specialise in document management. And we partner with DocuWare for their software and cloud services because it's one of the world's leading products, not only for its modules and features, but also in terms of security and ease of use. And today we're here to give you our experiences working on projects and how this can be achieved very simply. And we'd normally start small and grow the solution further into a department and throughout an organization as well. And some of the key departments that use DocuWare include finance and accounts, HR, sales, purchasing, contract management, and project management. But really, any department with a document-driven process can take advantage of the software. So we're going to focus on 3 processes today in 3 departments, but you may find that the topics discussed relate to other areas within your business as well. So there are often 3 key things that can cause problems for a business or hold a business back, and we've tried to demonstrate this in this slide. So relying on physical documents, manual processes which are time consuming, and finding information quickly. And all of these have a knock-on effect to the core business operations and can be significantly improved during in the document management solution as well. So we try and keep these sessions as interactive as possible, and now we have covered off some of the most common issues. We'd love to get your thoughts and feedback on what you see as your biggest challenges in the business. And I'm just going to post a poll on the screen. So you should now see that. If you could just select one or more of the options and we'll take a look at the results after. Brilliant, it's just a few more to come in. Great stuff. I'll close off the poll and I will just publish the results. Okay, so that's interesting. So for the attendees today, 75% of you says that it's the time it takes, closely followed by lost documents and lack of visibility of internal business. Brilliant. Thanks for completing that. Really appreciate it. Okay, so these are some of the biggest drivers we see when talking to our customers and prospects when implementing an electronic document management solution like DocuWare. And one of the biggest drivers we see is time. So time to process a document like an invoice or when storing a CV, and time spent administering this process. And the electronic workflow and email notifications help to keep the document moving through the approval process and reduce the time spent by users manually managing this process. And customers have experienced better relationships with their suppliers and less complaints because documents are no longer lost or misfiled, and users can find documents quickly and answer any potential queries. Reducing paper, as you know, is a key strategy for most businesses these days, and with DocuWare you'll be able to save all of your documents electronically, eliminating the cost and space required to store physical documents as well. There are some tools available in DocuWare where managers can see where every document is in a process, whether it's overdue, whether it's been stuck at a particular stage for too long, and this will help you identify any potential bottlenecks and avoid delays. And we also have native apps for Android and iOS, so users and managers can access information on the move and also authorize or reject documents regardless of their location. So we tried to simplify the approach to the process in this slide. And what we're trying to say here is don't worry, it can be a simple digital archive with search and retrieval to make it quicker and easier for users to share and find information. But also we have an advanced workflow that you could take advantage of to move documents around and reduce the amount of administration. And not only can you use the workflow, but we could also look to export the data from the documents. So an example of this is if you had an invoice, we can export the data and update your finance package like SAP or Sage, for example. Either way, we are here to support you throughout the project. Okay, so now we are going to take a look at the software, how it works, and how it can be used within your department, and really just to raise some ideas. And at this point, I will hand you over to Damien, and he'll take you through the demo.
Great, thanks, Neil. So today I've picked a few of the most popular features to show you for departments like finance, HR, and project management. Again, it's just to raise some ideas where DocuWare might be able to help your particular department or potential document process. So I'm going to start off with finance, and I'll start off with a simple storage and retrieval basic archive using the AI, which we call intelligent indexing. Now, intelligent indexing is like this artificial intelligence that will try and OCR all of the documents that you capture, read through it, turn it into data, try and figure out what those documents are, and try and do the kind of indexing process for you. So as you can see, DocuWare is a web-based application. We've got a few tabs along the top, and we'll kind of go through these as we go through the demo. On the right-hand side is the document viewer, and we'll show that in just a moment. But we'll start off with document trays. So these are where you can capture documents into DocuWare, but it's like the first stage before you actually store the document. So we've captured these into the intelligent indexing tray. You can see there's a bit of a traffic light system going on. So if we import some files just to show how that works. But again, you could scan those in. There's also an Outlook connector for DocuWare. You can also watch mail folders and mail accounts and stuff like that. We'll kind of show you the Outlook connector in a bit. But we'll start off with storing some of these invoices here. So if we select a few, we can kind of just go through storing them pretty quickly. And we're just using a simple store dialog. Like I said, to start off with, we're just looking at how DocuWare can be a simple digital archive just for storage and retrieval. So you can see here, the intelligent indexing engine has actually captured all of the index fields that you need. So it's recognized that this is an invoice. It's captured the company name. So every time you click on something, DocuWare will highlight it in the document viewer on the right-hand side, just so that you can visually check that the intelligent indexing AI engine has got it right, and kind of make any adjustments if you need to. So if we check the amount and we scroll down, we can see, yeah, it's captured the amount correctly. And we'll select the invoice number. We can see the invoice number is captured correctly. One of the things I wanted to show you as well that I thought might be useful is, let's say it doesn't capture something. Users don't have to type anything in. So we'll kind of teach it that this is the invoice number, and we can use something called single click indexing. So we'll just kind of click the invoice number, it populates the invoice number field, and we store it. And what that's done is it's taught the intelligent indexing engine next time that that's the invoice number. So again, we can see it's captured all the information correctly. We can change it if we want to, but we can just go through and store. And by doing this multi-select and store process, it just makes it really quick and really easy to go through and file those documents, rather than having to kind of walk to a filing cabinet, store them alphabetically or chronologically or whatever it might be. So we can just kind of rapidly go through these. So once we've stored those documents, I'll show you how to search for them. So if we now go into the searches tab, so these are the index fields that we captured earlier. So I don't know if you remember, in intelligent indexing field, we checked out the document type, it captured the company name. There might be a date range for that particular document or a status for that document. But we'll just use some of these index fields to search for that. So we stored some invoices. Here are a list of the companies. You could actually start typing. And if I start typing, DocuWare will automatically fill out the rest of the name and recognize the documents that you've stored with that document type. So if we're just searching for invoices for the company Rapid Transport, we can quickly search, retrieve that document, and let's say you're in like a customer services role, you might be searching for documents to answer queries or get invoices paid. So in this situation, you might want to do something with it. So you've got a toolbox on the left-hand side. And in here, you could print it out, you could email it to somebody, you could add some annotations or highlight some areas. Maybe something was missed off the delivery, you could highlight that option and put some text on it, whatever you want to do. Something like that. So that's kind of simple storage and retrieval using DocuWare as, you know, a basic digital archive. Now what I'm going to show you next is how you can take advantage of some of the more advanced features of DocuWare. Now DocuWare is quite powerful and can do a lot of things. And one of the new things that it can do, which was released in the latest version, DocuWare 7.1, which is only out last month, is line item capture. And this is something that people have been asking for a long time. So if we go into one of these documents, so we will pick up the Rapid Transport invoice. Now, some of the other features I'll show you. So I'll show you line item capture, which is new to version 7.1. I'll also show the invoice approval workflow, so how the document moves through that typical approval process. And we've also got GL coding set up and two-way matching, so that typical process where you might be coding an invoice and then matching it against purchase orders, delivery notes, that kind of thing. And then we'll also show a piece of software that we've developed ourselves. So one of the things that companies tend to ask for is, once they've coded an invoice and authorized it, they then have to enter all of that data into their finance package or their stock and ordering system, things like SAP or Sage or Access Dimensions or whatever it might be. So we've developed our tool to export data or documents from DocuWare so that you can push those to your finance package to completely eliminate all of the manual data entry that users might have to do. So if I get on with it and show you how that works. So I'm going to store it in the kind of extended store dialog box. And again, you can see intelligent indexing is really confident. This traffic light system is showing me each of these fields are green. So it's captured that information. It's pretty happy that that's correct. Now on this option, because we're showing the workflow, I've put a status option in as well. So each of the invoices I'm storing are going to start off with a status pending, which also means that managers and users will be able to check and do saved searches to see how many invoices are pending, how many have been paid, how many have been exported, that kind of thing. But the kind of exciting thing is this line item capture. So you can see here we have the line items, and this is like a table object. So if I click one of the fields, you can see it highlights this whole table in the middle, all of the line items. Now, this is just what I've set up. So I've kind of set up to capture item number, description, quantity, amount, that kind of thing. But you can set up whatever you like, whatever's relevant to your business and your requirements. DocuWare isn't like a fixed design. It's completely personalizable or customizable for your particular process or business. So this is just what I've set up. But it also recognizes the pattern. So although this table is kind of this big, if it came down to here, it would recognize that pattern and also capture that information. So we'll just go ahead and store that. And it's worth remembering this one. So that was the invoice for Rapid Transport. You kind of see a bit later. So if I store this document as well, and again, it's picked up all the information correctly, and it's a different kind kind of structure for the line items, but it's understood that and it's learned and it's captured the information correctly. And we'll just go ahead and store that. I'm just going to store the 2 invoices just to show you how that works in demo. Now, you've probably noticed that the lists and tasks tab have little numbers next to them, and they've been kind of going up as I've stored those 2 documents. So whereas before we searched for documents and we kind of searched in here, and you can search the filing cabinet, and we search by document type or company. You can also search by full text. So let's say you don't know the index information of a document, but you do know some of the content. You could run a search. It's returned all of the documents that contain those keywords, and you can see it's highlighted them as well. And in here, you could click the kind of 3 dots, and you can save this search as a list. So this might be a list that you run on a daily basis or a monthly basis or a weekly basis. But if you wanted to save it, then it then appears in your lists tab. So these are these regular kind of searches that you do. And I've just set up these just so that as a finance administrator or manager, you can keep an eye on what's going on. So you can see how many invoices are pending, how many have been exported to your account system, how many have been approved, that kind of thing. But it just gives you that visibility of what's going on within the finance function. Now, I mentioned tasks. So when an invoice comes into a business and it gets coded and it gets passed through the different managers, people will need to sign off different types of expenditure before it goes back to the accounts team for paying. So I've just created this. Again, we can create the workflow steps that are personal to your business, your organization. And I don't know if you noticed, but when we captured the line item data, there was also this GL code and cost center. So I'll just move that across. Now, I've linked this list to like an Excel spreadsheet. You can link it to an external data source. This can be whatever is relevant to you, whatever accounts or general ledger codes your finance package uses. It's not fixed or anything, but this is just an example. So it could be numbers, it could be numbers and an explanation of whatever that is. You can kind of go through each line item and just code it. I've also put cost centers here, just as an example. So some people might use cost centers as a way to do a split booking. So if different people responsible for signing off different types of expenditure, you might assign this to, say, HR, say the logistics manager needs to sign off this bit, or the marketing department. And what DocuWare can do is it can check how you have assigned those cost centers for authorization and pass it through those different managers, and they can authorize and reject. And you can also set rules so that it only goes back to the finance team to pay when all of the managers have signed off their bits of the invoice. But again, we can just figure out those rules depending on how that works in your business. So I'll just do the same for this one as well. I'll just do a couple just to speed it up for the demo. Now you can make these mandatory as well. So if you wanted to make sure that the invoice was coded before it went for authorization, you could just make that field a required field. So we'll just go ahead and confirm that. Now, if we go into tasks, you can see I've got my tasks. So I might have a set number of tasks or a set type of task to perform based on my role or function within the business. But we've also got monitor tasks. So monitor tasks is a great way for someone like a manager or a director to keep an eye on everything that's going on and possibly identify bottlenecks or where things have got stuck. So we can see these are 3 tasks, but they are with 3 people because it's the same invoice that I coded across 3 different cost centers. So we can see that here. And let's say someone was on a holiday, you could reassign it, or you could have the opportunity to kind of deal with it before that invoice gets stuck in the system. But I'll just go back to my tasks. Because I've set myself up as like an admin, I can just go ahead and authorize the whole invoice. Now, you probably noticed we've got approve and reject here, and with an open box, so there's much more options here. So you could put comments in there, maybe assign different voucher codes or booking references or whatever, and you can click on confirm, or we can use a stamp. So stamps are quite popular because they provide like a visual reference of everything that's happened to that particular document. And these stamps can be text, they can be images, they could be like a signature as well, and you can put different pieces of information in that particular stamp. But I'm just going to go ahead and stick a stamp on there. And because of my level of authority in this particular workflow, that will go straight through to pay. Now, this is the rapid transport invoice, which I mentioned earlier. And in the beginning, I talked about invoice approval, workflow, GL coding, and two-way matching. So this hasn't needed to go through an approval process. And the reason that is, if I go to related documents and then purchase orders, what's happened is when the DocuWare workflow was triggered, it did a search, and it can search external systems, it could search DocuWare itself to see if there's an existing purchase order, or a data source to see if there's a purchase reference, and we can make sure or check whether there's a corresponding purchase order, make sure the purchase order number is the same, make sure the amount is the same, and maybe if the amount is within a certain value, say under £500 or whatever, then it just goes straight through to pay. So we'll just close that off. And now we can just go ahead and pay. So I'll use the workflow action down here to do that one, just to show you the two different types of action. And on this one, I'll use a stamp. But they both do the same thing, and they'll both apply a stamp as well. But again, it just gives you a visual reference. So say if a customer service rep then went to search for that invoice and then found it, they would see the stamps on it, could see that it had been authorized, see that it had been paid, see when it had been paid, and can answer that query really quickly. So that's kind of the capture, storage, coding, and approval workflow. Now, the last thing I talked about was the export tool that we developed. So let's just open that. And it kind of makes sense now, especially with DocuWare version 7.1. Now that we're capturing line item data, GL coding data, things like budget codes, cost center, stuff like that, that if we've entered it in once, then why should we enter it into another system? Why should we duplicate that data entry process? So the export tool can make it a lot easier for users and reduce the amount of time they spend doing that kind of process, entering the information into those other applications. So I'll quickly run that. And you can see it's created this CSV file. Now, CSV is a common format that's compatible with most applications. So your Sage system or SAP or again, whatever it might be, could be looking at that folder and just absorbing this data and updating their records, showing invoices as paid, kind of assigning different expenditure to those budget codes. I captured the quantity as well as the item number in case it's relevant for some people who might want to update stock and ordering systems, that kind of thing. But you can see here we've got GL code, cost center, and we've got each of the line items for that one invoice. So we've got the two invoices that I did earlier. But I just think that's a really neat way of kind of providing value to those things that are having to sit there and type all this information into other applications. Great, so that's kind of everything I wanted to show on the finance side of things. I appreciate I needed a few key things just to give you some ideas. But now I'll kind of move on to the HR side of things. And as an example, I'll show like a typical employee onboarding process. Now, although DocuWare can manage the whole process from start to finish, the candidate review, interview, and actually hiring the new employee, using DocuWare workflow. We've kind of seen that in the finance process that I've just shown. So the key feature I've picked out of the HR demo is DocuWare forms. So we can kind of see here that this guy, Peter Strom, he's applied for a job, he's had an interview, and it's gone really well. So the next step would be to create a personnel record for that person and get them to fill in all the new starter forms and application forms, you know, bank details, emergency contact form, all that kind of stuff. Now that can take a while, and often you're duplicating the work. So the idea of DocuWare forms is to make it easier for the candidate, but also easier on the HR team, so that they don't have to spend all of that administration time kind of creating a physical personnel record and managing all the forms. So what I'm going to do here is Peter is just going to fill out the forms. So this guy's called Peter Strom. You keep on seeing, you know, different names and company names. This is all just fictitious. It's just kind of set up for demoing some of the features, so don't worry, it's not a real company. Now these forms you can build yourself, and you can decide what information you want, which fields are mandatory. You can link these to lists. You can enable free type, however you want that to work. I'm just going to fill out the kind of bare minimum just to show on a demo. Now we've also got radio buttons, so you can force people to make a single choice, or we've got checkboxes, so you can make multiple choices. You can also have an upload files option in case you need your new employees to upload, say like a proof of ID or something like that. And there's also a signature box, so we'll just do a quick signature. And click on submit. So typically they might have had to input that information, and often the same information, into multiple forms. And then the HR person would have to collate all of that paperwork and then create a personnel record. So if we show what DocuWare does, so I'm in the HR folder at the moment. You can see here, HR employee by name. And here's a list of our employees. Now what DocuWare is doing in the background is it's taking all the data that Peter has put into that online form and then merging it with all of the relevant paperwork that's required for his personnel record, and then creating him a personnel record. So if I refresh this view, we should see a new personnel folder for Peter Strom. So here we go. So DocuWare has created the personnel folder, and we can now see all of the different documentation that DocuWare has created based on the online form that Peter's filled out. So you can see here, date of birth, social security number, that kind of stuff. So if I go on this form, we can see it's captured the signature as well. We can just zoom in here, and you can see that kind of signature example I've put in there. But it just kind of automates that whole process for you. You've probably seen a task pop up. So this will be kind of completing that data. So this is where you could maybe finalize the new employee onboarding, you know, assigning them a personnel number, assigning them to a department, starting date, holiday days per year, that kind of thing. And that kind of completes that onboarding process. The next thing I thought I would show is a holiday request. So this could be any type of application or request. I'm just showing a holiday request as an example. So this could be like a purchase request. Maybe they need some new equipment. Maybe the department needs some new stock, whatever that might be. But it's just an example of using DocuWare forms in order to request something. So Peter Strom, and let's say he wants a week's holiday, and we can submit that. Sometimes when I'm talking to HR managers, one of the things that they'll say is if somebody applies for some holiday, the first thing they've got to do is go through all of the records, find out how many holiday days they get, how many days they've taken, how many days they've got left. And before they even figure out whether they can take any holiday, it's taken them a lot of time to figure that out. So if you let DocuWare manage that, we can see here that DocuWare has taken that application, checked how many days Peter has, how many days he's taken, and you can see here it's automatically sent him an email just to say, "Dear Peter, your requested holiday has been rejected because you don't have any days left." If Peter did have enough days left, it would then create an automated email to his line manager or the HR manager, whoever then needs to administer that part of the process. Okay, so that's DocuWare Forms, and that was kind of what I picked out to show you on the HR side of things. So now what I'll do is I will show you something that I picked out for project management. So if I just close this. Now the key feature I picked out for project management is version control with notifications. So this is, from what I understand, really important in project management to make sure that everybody working on a particular project is working from the latest set of drawings, the latest set of designs, or the latest contract to make sure people aren't making mistakes or putting things in the wrong place. So what I've done here as an example is I've imported some CAD files. So DocuWare can handle CAD files. You can render thumbnails. You can actually see in the preview window the CAD file itself. So we'll just go ahead and store that in the project management folder. And again, how many index fields you have or what they are is completely up to you. It's down to how you want to search for that information or how you want to classify it. So I'll classify this as a drawing. Let's start off with a new company. So I'll just put company 1, project 1. And a document date, so this might be the date of the drawing, today's date, whatever you want it to be. And we'll just go ahead and install that. So because I've put in a new company name and a new project name, if I go to the project management folder, we can see here it's created a new folder for that particular project. This is just how I've structured it. So I kind of thought it might make sense to have project and then company and then document type, what have you, but you can structure it however you want. Now, as part of a project, you probably get a bunch of other documents. You probably get delivery notes or contracts, whatever that might be, and you want to keep those all in the same place so that all of the people involved in a project have that kind of single point of reference for all of their documents. So I'm going to show you how to use the DocuWare Connect to Outlook integration. So I've put a few profiles here. Again, these are all configurable. You can set up whatever profiles you want. You can also have watch folders in Outlook, or we can monitor an email account, and that doesn't have to be Microsoft. It could be, Gmail, Yahoo, whatever you're using. So if I say this is a contract, just to be different to the other ones. Now I could type in a new company name if I'm allowed to, or select an existing one. And you've got different options as well. So you could just store the attachment or store the email and attachment or email only, whatever you want us to do. So just go ahead and store that. And the way I've set it up is you can notice that DocuWare has marked that email so that you know that that email or attachment has been stored. You could delete it as well, whatever you want to do. So if we go back in here, we can now see that there's two folders, one for the contract that we've just stored from email, and one for the drawing. Now, I talked about version control, and often this relates to drawings, or that's where kind of some of the biggest mistakes might be made if people are working from an old drawing. So I've set up a few bits of workflow triggers just to show how we might be able to manage that situation. So let's say you've got the drawing of this particular house, and the owner wants to put a new pond in there. You could do a send request You could choose a member of the project team. So let's say it's Brian Ford is the construction manager for the project team. We can put in some information about that. Then you can put some actions, so approve or reject, and you can automatically stamp it, which you saw earlier. So that's one way of maybe submitting a request. But I guess one of the key things is what happens if someone changes a document. So we've got this version control. So if I check it out, in reality, you'd probably check it out to your file system. So you'd use your CAD application to then make the relevant changes to it, or maybe Word if it's a contract. But just for demo, I'm going to check it out to my basket because that's how you check it back in. So let's say I've made some changes. So we can kind of put some annotations in here. Let's make this a bit bigger. And we'll put in. Now, what's quite neat is if you're using a touchscreen device, we could maybe select a line, kind of put the line here, put the pond there, maybe highlight it or something. But you can put some annotations on there, whether you're using a mouse or a touchscreen device, it doesn't matter. So what we'll do is check that back in. Now, version control gives you the option for kind of like semantic versioning. So give it some meaning, whether it's a major version or a minor version. So I'll just call this a minor version. We can put in some comments. And we can check that back in. And again, the workflow I've configured is looking at the project management folder and just seeing if any document version changes. And if it changes, then trigger some kind of action or notification. You can see here that the lists have increased. So I've done a saved search for any documents with a status of in review. So as part of that workflow, I've seen the versions changed. I've changed the status of that document to in review, so that it appears in my saved search list. Because I've made a change as well, it's now kicked off this workflow to approve those changes. And one of the key things is if somebody has made a change or requested a change, that the people involved get a notification. So here you can go, DocuWare has sent out this notification to say, please be advised that document type, drawing for project 1 has been amended and is currently in review. Here's a link. And again, this could be on a tablet or a laptop, it doesn't really matter. And that will take the builders or the project managers or the architects or whatever to the new drawing, just to let them know what's going on. So if I go in here and let's say that's all fine, I've got the approve and reject options here. If you reject it, maybe you can add some comments, but again, this is configurable. You can just put in whatever you want. But I'm just going to go in and stamp it with approve. Now, it might take a minute or two, but in a moment, the email engine will kick in, or the email notification engine will kick in, and it will just notify, again, all of the people in that group that the document that was in review, the amendments have been approved, and that document's been changed. Now, I appreciate I've only kind of gone through a few of the key features in each of those use cases. So if anyone on the demo would like to see something a bit more focused towards their particular department or industry, please let us know and we'll gladly sort that out for you. Well, thanks a lot for your time. I'll hand back to Neil.
Thanks, Damien. Okay. Great stuff. So just to bring you back to my previous slides, this is previously the challenges with traditional paper and digital storage. I just wanted to give you 3 clear examples of how other customers have made big improvements in each of these areas. So the first one is IKEA, and one of their biggest issues was the sheer volume of physical paper and documents. And this covered documents like invoices, credit notes, pay slips, and by introducing DocuWare in over 7 years, they've managed to reduce their filing costs by 90%. And over that same 7-year period, they've managed to eliminate the need to store 57 pallets of paper. So for your college, their main reason really was finding information on students, and that was sort of the biggest problem they encountered. And the college evaluated several document management solutions, and they needed a solution that would provide tamper-free record storage, automatic workflow processes, and also reduce document searching and processing times. And DocuWare was chosen because it met all of the college's requirements and also for its ease of use and flexibility as well. Smithfield Foods, they've used DocuWare to become more efficient and productive, freeing up their employees to make the best use of their time. So by making the significant process improvements, including the introduction of authorization workflows and intelligent capture, this has helped them to free up around 100 hours a month in lost administration, helping the company to achieve their growth targets. So if there is something that you have seen today that has raised some ideas about how DocuWare might help your organization, we've detailed here some suggested next steps. So we can offer a free document audit where we can map out a process within your business and identify areas for improvement. Maybe you want a personalized demo where we can focus on the parts of DocuWare that matter to you, and this could include your own documents as well. Also a conference call or a meeting if you just want to talk about your ideas where DocuWare might be a good fit for your business. And we do have a lunch and learn coming up on the 4th of July with more dates to confirm if you wanted to attend that. We're quite happy to send you an invite out to that. If you would like to find out more or to arrange one of the suggested next steps, we've included our contact details here. And that's really it. So we hope that you found it useful, and we do appreciate you taking the time to join us today. There will be a post-webinar survey as you exit the webinar, so if you could take a few minutes to complete it, it would really help us to find out how we did and what you found most useful. I will hand over to Damien now, and we'll both talk through any questions posted during the webinar.
Great stuff. Thanks, Neil. So let's take a look at any questions that have been raised up. Okay, so we've got one here about licensing. So if I take cloud, cloud's probably the most popular solution that people tend to go for, and it makes it really easy with the licensing as well. So cloud is basically licensed on the amount of named users that need access to DocuWare for storing, searching, being involved in a workflow. We also have a new user license. Again, I mentioned version 7.1 earlier, and with some of the new features like line item capture, also came a new workflow user. So if you only need certain permissions to do certain tasks, then we have another user license, which is basically by user. The AMS export app is separate, but all of the features that you saw, or all of the functionality that you saw today, is included with every cloud package. On-premise is a bit trickier because there's a user license, there is a license per module, a license per server, and that's something that we kind of need to talk to you about in a bit more detail. I hope that's kind of answered that question. What have we got next, Neil?
I work in sales. Does DocuWare cater for other departments? Well, the answer is yes. I think we demonstrated a couple of key departments that we felt were important to show you, but also it can be rolled out throughout an organisation. It's just been creative with some of the functions and modules available and being able to adapt them within the department of your choice, really.
Yes, I mean, as an example, I mean, we use DocuWare in our sales team, as you'd expect. We can manage things like sales collateral. We use it for order processing as well. So that pushes through from kind of filling out the order to sending it through to our accounts team to kind of pay. So yeah, I mean, it kind of depends what you want to use it for in your sales team. There's quite a varied arrangement of roles, but yeah, just let us know if you want to talk about it.
One for you, Damien. Does this product link to Sage Payroll to export relevant personnel details?
Yeah, DocuWare is kind of agnostic when it comes to CRM systems and finance packages or whatever those other applications might be. We tend to work at a data layer. So like I showed you with the export app, we're exporting data from DocuWare into a structure or a format that's compatible with your Sage application or SAP. And we're in the middle of quite a detailed integration project with SAP Business One. And again, we're operating at that kind of data layer to update certain tables, export data so that SAP can import it. But yeah, SAP, Sage, Great Plains, Access Dimensions, whatever it might be, is fine.
Someone's asked whether they can get a copy of the recording. That is something we will publish out as well. We'll just finalise it and we'll get that out to you ASAP.
Sure, yeah, we'll kind of email everybody that either couldn't make it or did make it so that there's a link there as well.
There's one here. How good is DocuWare at dealing with public forms?
Yeah, so we mentioned the licensing earlier, and you kind of assumed that in order to access DocuWare forms, you're going to need to have a DocuWare license to do that. And yes, you can lock it down so that only users with a DocuWare license can access DocuWare forms, but you can also make it public. So one example is one of my projects. They wanted to use DocuWare forms if they received an invoice from a supplier they don't currently have a contract with. So we were triggering workflow to send them a form so that the new supplier could fill in the new supplier onboarding form, and then that would be captured into DocuWare and kind of the accounts team could sort that out. So yes, if you want DocuWare to provide forms to people without DocuWare user licenses, you can just make that form public. Cool. So we got anything else on there?
Just about on-prem, but I think you did cover that.
Yeah.
So we've got both the cloud and on-premise.
One of the things I was going to mention, it hasn't been raised as a question, but it often gets raised on the webinars that we hold for DocuWare, is a question to do with cloud. So often I get asked, with the cloud option, where is the data stored? Because it's obviously important if you've got your critical business information, where is that information stored, especially with GDPR from last year. So DocuWare is very particular as to how it secures access to everyone's information. Everything's encrypted, and the data is stored in an Azure data center in Dublin. And also for kind of backups, that data is synchronized to Amsterdam. So it's just making sure that data sovereignty is maintained and EU data protection is complied with. So I think we've kind of covered everything. If we haven't got back to any questions, we will get back to you personally. Now, the contact details should be on screen as well. So like Neil said, there were kind of 3 main next steps. We could do a free document audit for you so that we can map out that process and identify areas where we might be able to help you. We can do a more personalized one-to-one web demo with you, maybe taking some of your documents and your processes to give you an example of how that might work for you. And the alternative is, if you just want to talk about your ideas, we can arrange a conference call or an on-site meeting. I hope everyone's taken something away from today and it's been useful, but please get in contact if you have any questions, if you want to take this any further. Thanks a lot for your time, guys.
Thank you.